haven't we met before? That might be one of the oldest pickup lines in the world. Even our ancient rabbis had heard that one. You see, they taught us that all Jews who ever lived or who will ever live stood at the foot of Mount Sinai when God gave the Torah. So before you answer, buzz off, perhaps your response could be, maybe we met at Sinai. Mount Sinai is perhaps the most defining moment in the life of our people. Now, I think I might have said that last week when I talked about the splitting of the Red Sea, as did Rabbi Kaluzny just a few minutes ago at the Michamocha. It also was a defining moment. But here at Sinai, where we stand together and receive the Ten Commandments, we forever seal the covenant with God, and everything that happens from here on out is based on this single moment. I really love the idea that we all stood there together. And it's more than just being together, but together with a common purpose. It's about knowing each other throughout time and space. It's about recognizing the humanity in each other. It also means that we are more than just a collection of histories and customs passed down through the generations, which in and of itself is good. But if we all stood together at Sinai, it means we were together at the beginning, each of us becoming part of the eternal covenant, a covenant that is relevant to each of us in our own day and our own time. The Midrash, the rabbi's interpretation of text, teaches this, saying, when God's voice came forth from Mount Sinai, it divided itself into 70 languages so that the whole world might understand it. All at Mount Sinai, all ages, all genders heard the voice of God according to their ability to understand. And Moses, too, understood it according to his ability. For it is said, Moses spoke, and God answered him with a voice that Moses could hear. Similarly, God answered us with a voice that each of us could hear. To me, this means we shape our Judaism to reflect who we are, the times in which we live, and our values and our purpose in this world. And in our time, I think that we are in need of a very specific piece of this covenant. Yesterday, I sat in a meeting with religious leaders across the spectrum of all faiths and denominations. Our topic was, how do we navigate divisive conversations? Everyone is experiencing it. Some are ignoring it. Others are diving into it. And everyone agreed on the idea that when we build relationships with each other, we learn that it is okay to disagree. In fact, it's great when we do, at least when we do it respectfully. Because when we actually engage with each other, we find commonalities even when we start with different ideas. When we are willing to engage in respectful conversation, discussion, our relationships become deeper, more profound, and more meaningful. And that's what we're missing. That's the part of the covenant that we need to recover. What it felt like to stand together. What it felt like to find a common purpose. Rabbi Daniel Schwartz, who was hosting the meeting, taught the group about the Talmud and how Hillel and Shammai once argued for 3 years over one topic, which finally resolved itself by a heavenly voice saying, both these and those are the words of the living God. Ultimately, the matter was decided in favor of Hillel, but only because, the Talmud teaches, the students of Hillel were kind and gracious, teaching their ideas as well as the ideas of the students of Shammai. And not only that, but they taught Shammai's opinions before their own. In the Talmud, the minority opinion is always preserved. There's value in it, even if it doesn't become the deciding opinion. Now, it wasn't planned exactly, although maybe it was and I didn't know it, but the Talmud text led perfectly into an announcement of a program that this Religious Leaders Forum is starting that will bring people together from all religious walks of life to meet and discuss and learn about each other with the goal of building lasting relationships. And just this morning, I was reminded about the theory that we come to know our best selves through our reflection in another's eyes. Imagine, in this context, not only learning about the other, but of learning about the essence of our own selves as well. And so if we go back to that Talmud text, we recognize that the law was decided in the favor of Hillel for the sole reason that Hillel's students were kind and gracious, not for the content of the argument, but for the behavior of the debaters. In that same vein, Reverend Richard White III said at our meeting, one ought to focus more on understanding than on being understood. Can I say that one more time? One ought to focus more on understanding than on being understood. Now, have you ever considered the content of the 10 Commandments that are presented in this week's Torah portion? I'd say it's pretty standard stuff. Don't murder, don't steal, don't make idols. We take these laws for granted. Maybe because they're familiar, maybe because they are the foundational agreements that we make in order to live in a society. And while it also says we must honor our parents and keep Shabbat and are prohibited from coveting our neighbor's belongings, it doesn't overtly say, be kind and gracious. And I wonder why. And maybe it should. It's interesting how when you get a thought in your head, you start seeing it everywhere. It happened to me. I saw a woman with a t-shirt that read, be kind. And then I started noticing. Someone gave me a really nice compliment, and it felt so good. And I remembered how over winter break, my son Danny got to meet his hero over Zoom, and this guy turned out to be the biggest mensch, and I'm still in awe of how kind he was to a high school student. And a program I participated in on Martin Luther King Day was called Listen Your Way to Kindness. And when a heretic comes to Hillel, the same Hillel from that Talmud text, and taunts him saying, teach me the whole Torah while standing on one foot, Hillel says, what is hateful to you, do not do unto any person. That is the whole Torah. All the rest is commentary. Now go and study. He's explicit about it, just like the t-shirt. Be kind. And if we could just be kind, wouldn't the rest of it be what we take for granted instead of the other way around? Like if we were kind, we wouldn't have to tell people not to murder. And if we were kind, we wouldn't have to tell them not to lie or steal. And if we were kind, imagine what this world would be like. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't really like to be told what to do. Instead, I like to come to things on my own. So perhaps it's purposeful that these 10 commandments don't mandate kindness per se, but rather they help us build relationships that lead to kindness. Without reading all 10 commandments, consider the arrangement of the laws on the tablets and how the first 5 define our relationship with God, while the second 5 characterize our relationships with other people and with society. And note too how the laws directly opposite each other on the 2 tablets directly influence each other. For example, on one tablet it's written, I am Adonai your God, and its opposite on the other tablet is written, you shall not murder. Thus, whoever sheds the blood of another destroys the reflection of God, for each of us is made in God's image. Each commandment is like this, and here's another example. On one tablet it is written, you must not use the name of God in vain, and on the opposite, you must not steal. One who steals, the rabbis say, will swear against God to deny it. So when it comes down to it, it's all about relationships. And you know, when we get to know each other, it's a lot easier to be kind to each other. And remember, we stood together, side by side, perhaps hand in hand at Sinai. We promised to build an ethical society. We promised to take care of each other. And I think it's high time we did it. So for just a moment, close your eyes and take yourself back to Mount Sinai, when not a bird chirped or a creature spoke, and the whole world was silent. Can you remember what God said to you? Do you remember who you met that day? Because it informed who you are today. It inspired you to believe and how to behave. It brought meaning to your life. And I hope that we all agree that there is still so much to learn about others, about ourselves, about God. But perhaps we can start simply with Hillel's teaching, be kind, and the rest will follow from there. Shabbat shalom.